Back in July of 2022, I went on a weekend camping trip with three close friends, Riley, Marcus, and my cousin Darren. We picked a spot near Bald Mountain Pass in the Uinta Mountains, mostly because it wasn't too far from Salt Lake and still felt remote enough to actually feel like you were off the grid. We were all in our late 20s, outdoorsy, and pretty experienced with backpacking. It wasn't our first trip to the Uintas either. We arrived early Friday afternoon, parked near the pass, and hiked in a few miles to find a clearing just above the tree line. From there, we had a wide view of the ridge to the west. The weather was perfect, clear skies, crisp air, and by nightfall we had a small fire going, tents pitched, and a bottle of bourbon passed between us. It was around 11 p.m. when we first saw them. At first, we thought they were aircraft, red orbs of light pulsing slowly in the distance, way above the tree line. But these weren't plane lights. They didn't blink like a beacon or move in a straight line. They hovered, still for maybe 10 seconds, then jumped a short distance and hovered again. Each movement was perfectly silent. I remember Darren whispering, "That's not a drone. Drones don't move like that." We were all sober enough to know we were actually seeing this. Riley tried filming on his phone, but the lights were too far off to register. After a few minutes, the lights faded back into the sky. We stayed up another hour, speculating about what we saw, then turned in around 1 a.m. That's where things get hard to explain. I woke up the next morning to the sound of birds and the smell of pine like nothing was wrong. But Marcus was gone. His sleeping bag was cold, like he'd never been in it at all. His boots were still by the fire pit. No note, no signs of a struggle, just gone. At first, we assumed he'd gone to take a leak or explore, but an hour passed, then two. We called his name. We searched the immediate area. We even went up to the ridge where we'd seen the lights, thinking maybe he'd gone to check it out. Nothing. Around noon, we hiked back to the car to call search and rescue. That's when we realized something even stranger. None of us could clearly remember going to bed. We remembered sitting around the fire. Then it was morning. There was no memory of crawling into the tents or zipping up our bags. Darren kept saying, "I feel like something's missing." The authorities launched a full search that weekend. Dogs, drones, helicopters. They never found him. No scent trail, no footprints beyond our own. It was like he'd vanished into thin air. I've gone over that night 100 times in my head. I still have no idea what we saw. But I'll tell you this. When people ask if I believe in aliens or ghosts, I don't say yes or no. I just say, 4 of us went camping near Bald Mountain that summer. Only 3 came back. I'm not sure if you've heard of the Lake Fork Trail in the Uinta Mountains. Most people haven't. It's a remote area, mostly used by experienced hikers, hunters, and the occasional scout troop back in the day. What happened there in 1972 still doesn't have an explanation, and my father, who was one of the first responders, is the only reason I even know about it. The official records don't say much. Just that a Boy Scout troop went missing somewhere along Lake Fork Trail in mid-June of 1972. 8 boys, 2 leaders. No bodies were ever recovered, but what was left behind was enough to make some of those search and rescue guys never go back up there again. My father never talked about it until he was in his 60s, said he didn't want to remember it. He was 21 at the time, volunteering with a search and rescue outfit during summer break from college. When the call came in, it was just listed as a missing person report. One of the leaders had radioed in late at night saying the troop was disoriented and needed help getting out of the area. They organized a response team by morning, but when they arrived at the coordinates, they found only one tent. It had been shredded like something had clawed its way in, not torn by a bear, not cut with a knife, shredded in thin parallel lines like it had been raked by long pointed fingers. The tent was empty, the sleeping bags inside partially unzipped. There were no footprints, no signs of a struggle, just a thick, clear, almost jelly-like substance smeared across the nylon walls of the tent and soaking into the forest floor around it. Samples were taken, but my dad said they never got the lab results back. Or if they did, they were classified. They searched the surrounding area for 5 days. Helicopters, dogs, thermal cameras. Nothing. They found one boot near a creek half a mile away, but no signs of trauma, and no footprints leading to or from it. The weird part, the laces were still tied and there were no scuffs or dirt on the sole. By the second day, most of the searchers stopped talking. A few of them refused to stay overnight. They said they were hearing things in the woods, low breathing, long footsteps, and once what sounded like a group of boys laughing in unison, but too far off and too synchronized to be real. My dad said the team lead finally called it off after one of their dogs refused to enter a grove near the trail. Just stopped cold and started whimpering. That dog had done avalanche recovery in the Wasatch for 2 years. Never froze like that before. On the final day, one of the volunteers, an older guy named Cook, wandered off from the main group around 6 p.m. They found him 2 hours later, standing alone in a dried-up ravine. He didn't say a word, just stared at the trees. When they got him back to camp, all he said was, "Don't look up." My dad told me something else too, something he said he never put in his official report. The last night they were up there, around 3 a.m., he was taking a piss just outside the base camp when he saw something standing among the trees. He said it looked like a boy at first, thin, pale, wearing what looked like an old scout uniform. But it was wrong. The proportions were off. The arms were too long. The legs didn't bend right. And its eyes, they glowed faintly, not reflecting light like an animal's, just glowing. It stood there for nearly a minute, not moving, just watching. Then it turned and walked away into the trees, moving completely silently. They filed the whole thing as an unexplained disappearance, and over time it faded into a backwoods rumor. But those kids, they were never found. I don't even know if I should be talking about this, but I can't stop thinking about it. I work with a regional SAR team, search and rescue. Mostly it's lost hikers, occasional injuries, stuff like that. But a few months ago, something came across my desk that I still can't explain. A GoPro was found on the edge of a drainage ditch about 15 miles off trail in the Uinta Mountains. It was turned off, but the battery had held just enough juice to save the footage. One of our guys brought it in thinking it might help identify a missing hiker from a week earlier. The man's name was Owen Langley, 31, experienced backpacker, solo trip. He was supposed to be out for 3 days. Never came back. We uploaded the footage onto a secure drive and started going through it. The first hour or so is totally normal. Him walking along Lake Fork Trail, talking occasionally to the camera about terrain, weather, elevation. He's cheerful, relaxed, exactly the way solo hikers usually are when they're documenting for YouTube or just keeping a record. Then, around the 112 mark, something shifts. He stops mid-sentence and looks off into the trees, says, "I thought I heard someone." He calls out, "Hey, you good?" Thinking maybe someone's lost. No answer. For a while, he's just standing there, frowning. Then you hear it on the audio, faint but clear. A voice. It's saying something like, "Over here," but it's off. It sounds like it's coming from the direction he was just filming, but the tone is all wrong. It's like someone trying to sound casual, but missing the mark. Just a half-second delay between the words and no emotion behind them. He says on camera, "That didn't sound right." The next 20 minutes of footage is him trying to figure out if someone's messing with him. He moves slowly through the woods, calling out, but he's more careful now, keeps looking over his shoulder. You can tell he's getting spooked. At one point he mutters, "There's nobody here." Then it gets worse. At 1:39 into the footage, something starts repeating his words, not an echo like delayed mimicry. He says, "I don't like this," and 3 seconds later the same phrase comes back, same cadence, but not his voice. The GoPro starts to shake more after that. He's walking faster, breathing harder. He tries to play it off like it's an animal or maybe someone playing a prank, but the fear is creeping into his voice. At 1:51, the camera's tilted up toward the trees. You can hear him whisper, "It sounds like a person," but it's not. That part made my stomach drop. He starts running. Not a sprint, more like a fast jog, trying to keep the camera stable. Whatever he's hearing, it's coming closer. You never see anything on camera, but you hear it. Heavy steps, not crashing like a bear or elk, but paced like someone walking with intent. Right before the end of the footage, he trips. There's a flash of ground, a loud grunt, and then he starts screaming. And not just yelling for help, panicked, desperate screams. Then he shouts, "Get off me!" And the very last thing the camera picks up is the sound of something wet and sharp, like meat being torn, and Owen gasping one final time. Then static. Then black. The weirdest part? When we pulled GPS metadata from the GoPro, it showed his final location was about 8 miles from where the camera was found. We never found his body. Just that camera. And the ground around it? Undisturbed. No blood, no footprints. Nothing. They filed it as an animal attack, maybe a mountain lion. But I've seen lion attacks. They don't toy with people. They don't mimic your voice. Whatever was out there with Owen, it wasn't human, but it knew how to sound like one.